Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Gatewood, and I am the Communications and Marketing Director at CFRE International, and we are very glad to have you with us today. A little bit of housekeeping before we fully jump in. We are recording today's webinar, and I will send you a link to the recording and to the slides to the email that you used to register in about 24 hours. Keep an eye on your inbox. If you don't see it, sometimes they do wind up in the junk folder. We have a chat box. Feel free to type any questions in that come to mind. I will be happy to answer those throughout the course of the presentation today. And we are going to be joined a little bit later by Phillip Rothwell, who is a CFRE based in the UK. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the slide presentation. I'm just going to set this up so you can see my screen here. All right. So you should all be able to see the screen, and we will just jump on in. So I'm going to start with the first 10 minutes just about credentials and a little bit of background on what the CFRE is. Credentials are your way of standing out as a professional, right? Any of us can go into a job interview or go for a promotion and say, look at all these great things I've done. Look how smart I am. Look at everything I know. But a credential is really your proof in the pudding that's measuring that, right? So that you're not just saying that, there's something standing behind your words. A credential is measuring your proven mastery of a concept or a topic. And it's very different from an academic degree because credentials require you to continue learning and recertify. You have to re-up, right? You don't just earn it and walk away. When you have an academic degree, they can become outdated very, very quickly. For instance, I have a master's in advertising from 2005 that is woefully out of date at this point, right? The world moves fast, and our academic degrees, they can become outdated quickly. The same thing goes for a certificate program. If you have gone on a course, let's say for a couple of days, and you earn a certificate at the end of it, that's great, but 6, 7, 8 years later, that certificate may not hold as much weight as it did. With a credential, it's always going to hold the same amount of weight. When you have a credential, you will be in demand because employers often seek people out that have credentials that have proven their knowledge, right? A lot of us in the certification world think it's very crazy that your hairdresser, they have to have some kind of licensure, right? But anyone in fundraising can just say, hey, I'm a fundraiser, and they don't necessarily have to know a single drop of information about it, right? So when you have a credential, you know, it makes you in demand, and credentials themselves are in demand. It shows that you're embarking on ongoing education, so your knowledge is razor sharp and that your practice is up to date. We all know people, unfortunately, we've probably worked with some folks who have never invested in their knowledge, right? Maybe when they came into the profession 10 years ago, they were all gung-ho about learning. And now they think, oh, I know everything I need to know. I'm going along just fine in my job. But that's a very dangerous train of thought to have. All right. Now, so what exactly is the CFRE credential? Well, we are the only globally recognized accredited credential for fundraising professionals. This is great for you because it means when you earn the CFRE, it means the same thing in any country where you're working. All right. So let's say you're in Sweden and you earn your CFRE and you move to Cyprus. It's going to mean the exact same thing. Let's say you earn your CFRE in Kenya and you're talking to a donor in Morocco, right? It's the same exact thing. It's not saying that you have a country-specific body of knowledge. It's saying that you have a global body of knowledge. We've been on the scene since 1981. We've got a great track record in the space, and we have over 7,700 CFREs today. Everything we do is around ethical best practice fundraising. All of us want to think nonprofits are always operating ethically above board. Nobody ever goes into an ethical gray area. Unfortunately, we know this is not the case. And we've all seen charities' names in the headlines for the wrong reasons, right? And we don't ever want that to be our charity. The CFRE is designed to ensure that you don't have any gaps in your fundraising knowledge and that your practice is aligned with globally accepted ethical best practices. That's peace of mind for you, for your employer, for your donors, funders, and stakeholders, right? Who doesn't want to work with somebody that has proven their knowledge of ethical best practice fundraising? There are CFREs in more than 25 countries. This is great for you because it is an incredible way to expand your network throughout the world, right? When you're a CFRE, you get access to a special online community just for CFREs. It's a very active hub where people are sharing tips and information and tapping into one another's knowledge. Getting access to a global viewpoint can be very helpful. You may be facing a challenge and somebody, 2 countries over has already resolved something quite similar. So building your network exponentially is a wonderful benefit of being a CFRE. Now, some employers think, okay, you're doing your job great, you're hitting your fundraising targets. Does it really matter if I have a CFRE on the team or not? Well, firstly, we all want ethical staff. We don't want anybody getting themselves or their charity into trouble, especially inadvertently, right? There is a lot of churn in many fundraising positions, right? People come into this field and maybe 6, 7, 8 years later, they leave. Or people don't have a long tenure at organizations. They might be at one organization 2 years and then 18 months the next organization and so on. The CFRE is a great way to promote staff retention, okay? Millennials, I think the stat is something like 54% of millennials would be more likely to stay in a job if their employer supported their ongoing learning, right? For millennials and Gen Z, continuous learning is very, very important in upskilling. Employers who invest in their knowledge are saying 2 things. Firstly, they're saying you're worth it, right? You're worth us paying how many ever euros or pounds or whatever your local currency is for this person to go to conferences, to participate in ongoing education, to earn a credential, right? But it's also investing in the knowledge of your staff so that you have smart people and you can feel confident that they've gone on this kind of education, right? So with the CFRE, we don't have a design course of study. We don't say you have to do these 6 webinars and you have to go to this all-day session, right? You are going to put your own education together, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you have to ensure that you have a very wide body of knowledge that aligns with our test content outline, which I'll also talk about a little bit down the track this hour. Donors want peace of mind that they're working with people ethically. We've had a number of people tell us, I put CFRE on my business card after I earn the credential. I give it to a donor and they say, what does the CFRE stand for? And people say, it measures, it's a credential that's measured that I have global knowledge of ethical best practice fundraising. Who doesn't want to work with somebody like that, right? I think it's 94% of CFREs say that earning the credential, or wait, I think we have it on another slide about how it boosts your confidence, right? When you have undergone a course of study, you've figured out what your gaps in knowledge are, then you address those gaps, you come away thinking, geez, I really do know this stuff. I really do have a 360-degree view of fundraising. And in turn, that translates into confidence at work. Lastly, working towards globally accepted best practices. Every organization does something a little bit differently, right? Many people learn on the job, they're trained by the superiors, but you need to stop and think, okay, this is the way we do it, but what is the globally accepted ethical best practice Are we aligned to that? And many CFREs say that going through the CFRE process made them realize that there were things they needed to course correct in their own development team, and the CFRE opened their eyes to that, and they were able to take those steps. When you have the CFRE, it's a verification that you know ethical best practice fundraising and that you've addressed any gaps in your fundraising knowledge. It ensures that if you train people, you don't accidentally pass down bad habits. You thought something was the great way to go about it because you never heard anything different. And then maybe that's not true. Education and healthcare fundraising professionals tend to have a greater need as well for a credential because they are working in an environment where so many people have done advanced education. If you're working for a hospital foundation, there's a very good chance that everyone in the meeting room could be from a medical background, or the accountant or whoever, and they all have a credential in their respected fields, and they're looking for you to have one in yours. Also, if you are interested in building your brand and your public persona, right, on the speaking circuit, having your CFRE is a great thing to be able to put on those applications when you want to speak at conferences. So we do a survey every 2 years of what benefits the CFRE is delivering for people. 92% said that it increased their on-the-job confidence. 92% said it contributed to their personal satisfaction. And that means that people thought, wow, I've done this. This is really an achievement for me, and I feel better about myself. And 93% would recommend it to a colleague. All right, so before we dive into the CFRE application and exam, we are going to hear from Phillip Rothwell. He is a CFRE. He earned his credential in 2015. He is on the CFRE International Board of Directors. He is also the Director of Development at King's College in Taunton in the UK. And Phillip is going to tell you about why he pursued his CFRE. And before I turn it over to Phillip, I just want to remind folks that we do have the Q&A pane. So if you have any questions for Phillip, you can put them in there. All right, so Phillip, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thanks very much, Ashley. It's good to see everybody. And I've been a CFRE since 2015. Really enjoyed it, and I decided to pursue it. I've spent my career fundraising in education in the UK. And throughout that time, I met various people. One of them was somebody who was coaching me or mentoring me, and he had the CFRE designation, and I wondered what it was. I asked him about it, and it was pretty clear. It's something I wanted to aspire to and work towards in my career, because for everything Ashley said, it gives you that sort of body of knowledge. It's practical, it's around the world, it applies universally. And I thought, right, there aren't many UK CFREs at the time. Well, there are a few of them, a few of us, but nothing like in in the rest of the world. So I thought, let's be part of this. Let's grow this credential. And I really enjoyed pursuing it, studying for it. Getting my CFRE was a great sort of point of honor when I first achieved it. And recertifying, again, like Ashley said, it keeps you fresh. On the screen there, it also says MBA. I got an MBA a few years ago. It was great fun. I really enjoyed doing it. But once that's done, it's done. I got a certificate and that's it. It's a great thing to have, but a CFRE is live. You've got to keep doing it. So, and also as fundraising best practice changes, and new material comes out and new thinking comes out, CFRE keeps up with that in the exams process too. And I felt that I've met lots of honourable fundraisers all over in the profession, in the UK and around the world. And it's not to say that if you don't have the CFRE, you don't subscribe to high standards and best practice, but CFRE is peer reviewed. Your peers will tell you, your peers set the exam, your peers set the standard and judge you and give you your CFRE. And it's a great way to show that I'm really committed to the highest standards in fundraising. And like I said, I wanted to follow in the footsteps of people that I knew who'd got it before. So if you have the next slide. Just some benefits I found it for me. It improves the perception of fundraising in the UK for people, for donors in particular. The most important people to me are the donors who support our organisations. Well, they might not know instantly what CFRE is, but when you explain you're a certified fundraiser, they all of a sudden understand that you're committed. You're not just someone that's come along and asking for money. You're really committed to this area and to the best practices of fundraising. It gives them confidence and it keeps you at the forefront of it's continuous learning. It keeps me fresh because to be a CFRE, Ashley will tell you later, you've got to keep attending training. You've got to volunteer and give back to the sector. So, instantly, if I meet a fellow CFRE, I think, brilliant. This is someone who's really engaged with fundraising as a profession. They're actively fundraising. They're committed. They want the best fundraising. And I think in the UK, Europe, and the Middle East, all of us working in these in this area, I think it can only be a good thing for more of us to become CFREs. So I can't sing its praises highly enough. So over to you, back to you, Ashley.
All right, thank you so much, Philip, for sharing that. Again, if you have any questions for Philip, you can put them in the question pane and we will hear from him towards the end of today's presentation. Okay, so how do you become a CFRE? Well, there are two steps. One is the online application and the second is to pass the exam. And we're first going to take a look at the application. The application looks at what you have done in the last 5 years. It is the 14th of November, 2023. Our application currently is looking at what you've done from January 1, 2018 forward. On January 1, 2024, we will start looking at 2019 and forward. Okay, so it's recent. What have you done in the last 5 years? The application will never expire. If you started an application with us 2 years ago and haven't logged in since, we still have it. Your info is there. And we really recommend that you log in and out of the application and fill it in a little bit at a time because it can be a lot to sit down and do all at once. And I'm going to explain that in a second, but just know the best thing that you can do is start your application and keep plugging away with your information in there. You can start it for free. There's absolutely no cost to begin your application. You can see on this screenshot here of the homepage where you can click to begin it. You only pay if and when you submit it. If you begin your application today and next week you win the lottery, you don't have to worry. There's nothing that's going to be a cost for you to the CFRE, right? If you decide to go be a lottery winner, which I wouldn't blame you. The first part of the application I'll talk about is education. Education is all of the fundraising education that you've done. It can be some education not directly in fundraising, but that contributes to your success fundraising, like leadership classes and a variety of other things. The application works on a point system and you need a certain number of points in each category. There are 3 categories, the first being education, and you need 80 points. And you're thinking, great, Ashley, how do I earn a point? What is a point? Well, you earn 1 point per hour in a session, easy peasy. You go on a 1-hour webinar about digital fundraising, 1 point. You go on a 5-hour masterclass on capital campaigns, 5 points. Very, very easy. If you like to present, you will earn 2 points per hour when you present. If you think, Ashley, I would rather fall through the floor than stand up in front of people, that's no problem. You don't have to present, but if you want to, it's a way that you can earn points more quickly. The first time you present new material, we'll give you 3 points per hour because we recognize the research and time that went into making that presentation from scratch. All right, we've talked a lot about academic degrees in relation to credentials, but we do have a way that you can earn 10 points if you have an academic degree. If you don't have a degree, that's fine. You don't have to have one, but if you do have one, all the better. You can earn up to 40 points from your degrees. If you have a master's, that would be worth 10 points, and your bachelor's would be worth 10 points. They can be any year, any major. The degree is the only application item that does not have to follow that 5-year rule. talked a second ago about non-fundraising education. We can take up to 10 points or 10 hours of that. Make sure that it is something relevant. I can't stress that enough. Somebody tried to submit yoga for fundraisers, which sounds really fun, but unfortunately we cannot award you points for that. Business writing, public speaking, leadership, team management, all of these would be considered relevant non-fundraising education. Service learning is our term for volunteering. It's not mandatory to volunteer, but if you do volunteer, you're going to be able to earn points. Again, it's up to 10. The way you calculate this, super easy. The application does a lot of the calculating for you, but you'll earn 1 point per year per org you volunteer with. So let's say, for instance, you volunteer at a beach cleanup every weekend in June. That's 1 point, right, per year per org. The volunteer opportunity does not have to run 12 months of the year. Many volunteer opportunities are much shorter than that, and we realize that. If you're on a committee or board of a nonprofit, that will also net you points, and you'll earn 2 points per year that you are a committee or board member. This would also apply to your volunteering at your place of worship, at your children's school, let's say your children's sports teams, if you're on a fundraising committee there, that's all going to count towards these 80 points. On your screen, you'll see a list of all of the kinds of education that qualify. I would like to draw your attention to the fourth item in this list, the audio and video recordings of conferences. This is your hottest ticket to get your points on the cheap, right? I'm an incredibly frugal person in my daily life. I'm always trying to find out the cheapest way to do something. If you go to a conference and you attend whatever sessions on site you attend, you'll get those points. But if the conference emails you a month later and says, hey, you can watch recordings of all the sessions, you can then watch recordings of the sessions you did not attend on the day, and you can get points for that. Effectively, off of one conference registration, you can get yourself many, many points. All right, and that's the first part of the application done, right? The second, this is my favorite part of the application because it's only 2 slides. Professional practice. This is just you working, right? You doing your job. You need 36 points, and this is, again, very easy. You just need to have worked 36 months in the last 5 years in a paid professional fundraising role, okay? So 1 month equals 1 point. That's how you get to 36 points, 36 months. If you've been out for maternity leave, medical leave, COVID affected your job, right? We understand not everybody works 5 out of 5 years solid. If you are a full-time fundraiser, well, I shouldn't say full-time fundraiser. If you work full-time and 50% of your job is fundraising and 50% is marketing or PR, that's okay. But if you work full-time, at least 50% of your duties must be fundraising related. And that's it for the second section. Easy. The third and final application piece is professional performance. This is you raising money. You need 55 points. For everybody joining us today from the UK and Europe that's working in pounds and euros, you have a very nice advantage here. 1 point is 25,000 US dollars. There is a currency converter inside the application. You need to have raised what's about the equivalent of 1.375 million US dollars. We are a global credential. Why is this in US dollars? People wonder. We're accredited, and the accrediting body only lets us use one currency. So that's why we have a currency converter. So obviously the pound is always stronger than the dollar. The euro 98% of the time is stronger than the dollar. So this can work very much in your favor. Now, we know fundraising is a team sport, right? Most people don't sit by themselves and fundraise unless they're in a department of one. If Philip and I both work on a direct mail piece, and that brings in 200,000 euro. If we're both going for the CFRE, I don't say, well, I probably brought in 100,000 euro and Philip probably brought in 100,000. So in my application, I'll put 100,000. No, we don't do it like that. You'll take the 200,000 euro number for yourself, right? Galas, direct mail pieces, a number of fundraising activities. We can't neatly parse it down to each person in the team is responsible for this amount of money, right? That's just impossible to do. So you would take the collective amount for that. If you do not work in bequests and you sit next to somebody who lands a 2 million euro bequest, you cannot go, oh, well, we're on the same team, so I'll just put that in my application. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually have been on that project yourself. All right, so we talked about how it's free to begin your application, but what does it cost when you're ready to submit? It's 700 US dollars if you are a participating organization member. That's an org that we have an MOU with to give their members a discount. So the Association of Fundraising Consultants in the UK, the Kenyan Association of Fundraising Professionals, and the European Fundraising Association's membership orgs, which that sounds like a lot, but we'll look at the next slide and it'll make more sense. They will all get you access to this discount. If you're not a member of one of these organizations, you will pay 875 US dollars. This screenshot, this is all of the organizations that are members of the European Fundraising Association. So almost every country in Europe has their peak body as a member of the European Fundraising Association. So you can see here, we've got French Generosity, we've got the Institute for Sustainable Philanthropy, the Chartered Institute of Fundraising in the UK. All of these orgs, if you're a member, are going to save you 20%. All right, now, if your organization runs, let's say on a calendar fiscal year, or let's say July 1 is when your new fiscal year starts, see if your employer will cover part or all of the cost. We know about 50% of employers contribute to part or all of that fee. I always recommend that you talk to your boss as early as possible and say, look, when we make the next budget, I would like there to be 700 US dollars equivalent set aside for me to submit my CFRE application. You're a fundraiser, you know all about timing conversations and asking for support. So don't hesitate to have that conversation. That fee includes us reviewing your application, all testing fees. When you go to the test center, you won't be asked to pay anything else. A digital badge, you may have seen these on LinkedIn, they're very popular. When people become a CFRE, they have this nice digital badge that they can put on their LinkedIn profile to announce to their network, I have become a CFRE. The fee also includes us printing and mailing your certificate to anywhere in the world. So if you're saying, well, Ashley, I live in Madagascar, am I going to be paying more? No, that fee, no matter where you live, covers that. There's no charge to resubmit your application. If you submit it and we go, something doesn't look quite right here, we need a little more info, and we send it back to you, you will not be charged again to resubmit. So don't hesitate there. All right, that's the application done. Now, the exam. People have a lot of trepidation about exams as adults. It's very normal. I want to put your mind at rest about the CFRE exam. It is measuring what you do for your profession, right? It's not like, oh, I'm just going to learn user experience in 6 months and then I'm going to try to pass a test on it. This is what you do day in, day out. Your years of experience are behind you. And then through the CFRE process, you're going to bolster your fundraising knowledge. So don't psych yourself out because there's an exam. The exam is not offered every day of the year. You can see here on your screen, it is available in 4 test windows. Any month except for December, you can take it. When you submit your application, you don't have to tell us the day you want to take your exam, but you do need to tell us the test window. All right, now the exam, what does it cover? We are very, very, very transparent about what the exam covers. The 6 knowledge domains you see here are where all of the questions are essentially coming from. And we tell you how many questions are in each of these areas. You're smart, you've probably noticed that securing the gift and relationship building are almost or half the exam, right? Do not skimp studying, period, but definitely give yourself ample time and room to study securing the gift and relationship building. And if you're thinking, thank you, Ashley, for this, but this is very, very broad. How do I know what you want me to study within these? Well, we have a test content outline. This is a PDF on our website. It is the knowledge book, if you will, of the exam. So if you've ever done another credential, you'll know they pretty much all have their own version of the test content outline. This breaks down each of those 6 knowledge domains into the nitty-gritty of what each one covers. The way you determine what you're going to study is you print this off, grab a highlighter, and highlight any item you don't feel confident you can answer an exam question on, or that you haven't directly worked in yourself. That's going to inform you about what to study, right? Because if you've been, I mean, we looked back over here, right? We've got volunteer involvement. If you've been running a volunteer program for 25 years, you're probably not going to need to spend much time on that, right? So keep that in mind. We have a resource reading list. This is our list of recommended books. Most people read 1 to 3 books. Currently, the most popular book people are reading is Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. Even if you decide not to pursue your CFRE, this book is the gold standard right now in fundraising. It's the one that people have read probably more so than any other book currently. So it's just a great book to have. I told you I'm very frugal. Amazon discounts this book very often. I would recommend, if you don't want to pay full price, go to Amazon, search for it, and wait until it gets at a good price for you. But I think I've seen this discounted up to 40%. So keep your eye peeled for that. The exam is 200 questions. Each question is multiple choice. There are 4 options per question, right? 4 answer options. This is great news for you because the correct answer is staring back at you. There's no open-ended questions. There are no essay questions. You are going to be selecting 1 out of 4 answer options. The exam is available only in English. We wish it were in other languages, but unfortunately, due to cost and our accrediting body, the exam is available in English, but it is using globally accepted and understood terms. The exam is looking at the best practice. It's measuring your knowledge of ethical best practices. You're probably thinking, Ashley, of course, you've told me that 5 times. Well, I say that again because sometimes people take this exam and they begin answering questions for how their organization does something. If your organization is not following globally accepted best practices for one reason or another, it's not to say that you're unethical, but we all know not every organization does things by the book. If you answer for how your organization does something and they're not following globally accepted best practices, it's probably not going to have the result that you want. So that's why you want to make sure you fully understand the best practice. The exam is I should rephrase that. You have 4 hours to take the exam. However, good news for you, it's not a 4-hour exam because most people finish in 2.5 hours. We're very generous in the amount of time we give. You will have time to check your work, read every word and every question very thoroughly. When we're anxious, we start to read quickly and then we aren't comprehending the information as well. So just know, if you're thinking, I'm a slow reader, I'm the kind of person I have to read everything 3 times over, we give you 4 hours, so you've got a lot of time. Every question can be linked back to that test content outline. Nothing is going to come out of left field and you're going to go, oh, I had no idea I'd be asked about that. You'll know. You can move backwards and forwards in the exam, and the score range is 200 to 800 with a passing score of 500 being required. Look at those numbers. You do not have to have a perfect score, okay, right? The passing score is 500. If you're taking the exam and you think, I know I got that one wrong, that's okay. You are allowed to have a margin of error, right? You don't have to get a 100% correct on it. I've been here 6 years at CFRE International and we have yet to have a perfect exam, so don't put that pressure on yourself. More information about scoring is on our website. All right, now this is my favorite part of the webinar. This is the practice question. It does not appear on the live exam. You do not need to type your answer anywhere. You do not need to say your answer, but you can just have it in your mind. All right, so let's look at this together. When a donor wishes to make a planned gift / bequest to the endowment fund, the fundraising officer should first, 1, offer to contact the donor's financial organization and advisor. 2, explore what the donor wishes to accomplish with the gift. 3, identify and share with the donor the organization's future needs. Or 4, introduce the donor to various planned giving options. And I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. All right, everybody have your answer in mind? And the globally accepted best practice is to explore what the donor wishes to accomplish with the gift. I'm a donor, I come to you. You're not going to say, let me tell you about this razzle dazzle new thing we have, right? Because you don't want to steer my giving in one direction or the other. You want me to come to you and tell you what my philanthropic interests are. All right, and I saw we have a question in the question pane, and I will address that question in a couple of slides. So if you have any more, feel free to keep them coming. We do have some study tools that you can purchase if you want. You don't have to buy these if you don't want them, but I just want you to know that they're there if you are a person who maybe isn't great at identifying your own knowledge, right? That test content outline, we're going to highlight what you know and what you don't know. Some people look at that and go, well, do I know that? I think I know that, but do I really know that? If that's you, we offer a practice exam. It's a subscription, so you can take it as much as you want in a 30 or 90-day period. It has a bank of 320 questions, many of which are retired from prior CFRE exams. This will help you gauge where you need to focus your study time. We also have a study guide if you prefer an old school workbook style of learning, right? You like to have a physical workbook and you're writing in here and you're taking notes here. That's a great tool for people like that. All right, now for free, we have a number of things on our website, like the glossary. This is the study plan template. This will walk you through step by step how to do each thing. If that's you, if you are the kind of person that thinks, okay, I want to check this box, and then I want to go down here and make sure I've done it and check this next box, download the study plan template for free off the exam prep section of our website. All right, now when it comes to taking the exam, you have 2 options: your home or office, or in person. If you have a mobility or health concern, or you live far from a test center, home or office is a great option. But if you can get yourself to a test center, that is what we recommend. Why? Because we get all of the data back from all the exams. You statistically have a higher chance of passing if you take the exam in a test center. And you may think that seems counterintuitive. I will be more comfortable at home. Your home is not a distraction-free test center. You are also not allowed to get up from your desk except at one point, which I'll talk about in a minute. So if Amazon delivers a $500 package on your doorstep, you cannot leave your exam and go get it, right? You have to stay in front of your camera the whole time for security reasons. How do I find my nearest test center? Well, go to pearsonview.com/CFRE. You'll type in your postal code and then it will populate what you see on the screenshot for your area. I've done this for London. It'll give you a map with the locations as well as a list down the side. Now, once you finish the exam, basically you're going to get your score within 48 hours. You'll get a confirmation email from us saying, hey, we know you took the exam and we're getting your data from the test center and it's all good. In 1 week, you'll get your digital badge. And at the end of the test window, you will get your certificate. We mail them in a batch. We don't mail certificates every day of a test window. So we do them all at the end. And then you will have your certificate, which you can frame. Recertification. We've talked about how the CFRE is not something that you just earn and you say, well, that was a great time. I'm just going to ride off into the sunset and never do any more professional development. You have to recertify every 3 years to maintain your CFRE. There is no exam to recertify. Once you pass the exam, you are golden. You do not have to worry about taking it again, right? The cost is $408 US if you are a participating organization member and $510 US otherwise. There's an online application. And so as soon as you become a CFRE, you'll get access to this recertification application. And you'll see here what the requirements are. So you need to keep working, you need to keep raising funds, you need to keep going on professional development, right? That education. I do want to call your attention to professional practice, right? 30 points, which we now know means 30 months you need to work in a 3-year period. If you are out on medical or maternity leave, contact us and we will ensure that you don't lose your CFRE. All right, now Philip is going to come back and give you his advice for getting started. And then we've got a little more information and then we will take your questions. So I will turn it over to you, Philip.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I mean, it's all great. It brings back memories of doing the exam myself. And like I can attest, you don't have to do it again once you've passed. And good enough is enough. You know, you don't need to, like Ashley said, you need to get that 800. You just need to get over your 500 and pass the exam. But every question on there is really is benchmarked against an academic text. I know about this now. I'm on the examinations committee that sets questions, and it's so rigorous. And as the world adapts, so do the questions over time. So every question on there is relevant and current and could be used. And you know, it's not giving away too much to say that in what we do in fundraising, it should be donor-centric. So when you approach the exam in a donor-centric way, thinking about the donor, then you can't go too far wrong. But that said, speak to someone in your country. Now, there aren't many of us. We're all dotted around Europe, the Middle East, wherever. So, you know, speak to me or anyone else or a CFRE ambassador about their experience of applying for the CFRE and the exam and studying. Again, that book that Ashley mentioned, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, is a great one just to have on your desk generally, or on your bookshelf, whatever, just generally for good practice. And the thing I just have to say is, it costs nothing to start the application now. Start your profile, start to build it. And especially once you've also passed the exam and you need to recertify, like I need to recertify every 3 years. So I haven't done it properly, but I need to keep reminding myself to go back and keep updating my points to make sure I've got enough points to then recertify, because, you know, thank your future self will thank you. So there's nothing to be stopped by just trying it out now. You know, you don't have to part with any money or anything, or commit yourself to doing the exam. Just start to build the application and prove to yourself how much you already do know. We're all experienced fundraisers, and we all deserve to have this CFRE, and our donors do too. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Philip. And for folks that said, well, I was actually just looking off to the side of the screen, I am going to drop a link into the chat box. It's a very long link, but you can click that if you want to start your application. You can find it. We already looked at where you can see it on our website, but if you want to go ahead and get started today, drop your information in and start tracking your education. That's some of the best advice that I can give you, because people want to earn their CFRE and then they're trying to think, well, what the heck have I attended in the last few years? If you attend a webinar or a conference and you just drop it in your application straight away, you don't have to worry about forgetting it, right? So if you are thinking, how am I going to remember what I've attended over the last 5 years for that education piece? A lot of people jog their memories by going through their emails, expense reports, credit card reports sometimes. If you can go through your Outlook calendar, your professional calendar. Oh, I was at CIOF on these dates in 2021, whatever it may be. So this is why we really recommend that you begin your application, even if you just feel a little bit like, oh, am I going to do it? Am I not? Because then the education will be there for you if you've been tracking it. Philip mentioned CFRE ambassadors. We have a network of CFRE ambassadors around the world who are current CFREs that will talk to you about their experience. So if you say, did it really make a difference for your fundraising practice? You can ask that to an ambassador. You want to say, did your boss put any money towards this? Again, you can ask an ambassador. It's no cost, and you can email share, SHARE, at CFRE.org. I always have to spell that because one time somebody thought I meant Cher, like the singer, who surprisingly does not work for us. But so SHARE at CFRE.org, and I will connect you to an ambassador. If you do want to talk to your boss about possible financial support, they're making an investment in you. Some people say, well, my boss is never going to pay 700 US dollars. That's just not going to vibe with them, right? Maybe they'll buy the Achieving Excellence in Fundraising book for you. Maybe they'll give you time off to study or the day off when you want to take the exam. So there are other ways to get your employer's support. All right. This slide is our final slide, and then I will turn to the question pane. Start your application and track everything in there. We also recommend that in your personal email, you start a folder called CFRE, and that can be where you send your event agendas and all of your receipts to that folder, because that will make life a lot easier if you think, oh, I just went to this 3-day conference. I don't have time to get into my CFRE application. We'll just forward that information into this folder. So when you are ready to enter it, it's to hand, and talk to your boss during budget creation. You've earned yourself 1 point in the non-fundraising education section for being with us on today's webinar. So don't let that point go to waste. All right, and now we've got a great question here. How do you prove income generated, especially thinking of former organizations? This is a great question. So this is the professional performance piece of the application, the funds that you have raised. We can take a signed letter from your prior supervisor attesting that you have raised those funds. We can also take audited financial statements. If it's not all public, whatever, we can take whatever whatever you're able to share with us, as long as it reflects what you have raised. And we can also take annual reports, right? So if you tell us at this organization, I raised 6 million pounds, but in 2020, but the annual report shows that only 1 million pounds were raised that year, obviously we're going to realize there's a discrepancy. So those are all ways you can do it. Signed letter from the supervisor, audited financial statements, annual reports. All right, great. Well, if you have any questions that come to mind after the presentation, email succeed@cfre.org. We are very, very responsive. We will come back to you very quickly and make sure you have the information that you need. So I'd like to thank Philip for joining us today and sharing his awesome expertise and viewpoint of somebody working in Europe. with the CFRE. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Keep an eye on your inbox and you will shortly see the email from me with the link to the recording and the slides. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.